Beneath the shimmering waves, hidden far from human sight, there was a secret ocean realm. In this magical place lived a graceful young mermaid with a voice so lovely that every sea creature paused to listen when she sang. This mermaid often dreamed about the world beyond the water. On quiet days, she would float near the surface, peeking at the people playing in the sunshine and the boats gliding across the sea. One afternoon, a large vessel appeared on the horizon. Commanding the ship was a brave and charming prince. The mermaid was instantly drawn to him. But before long, dark clouds gathered, and a violent storm rolled in. Waves crashed against the ship until it shattered. The prince was thrown into the ocean, struggling to stay afloat. The mermaid rushed to his side and rescued him. She carried him gently to the shore and sang to him as he lay unconscious. As her melody drifted through the air, the prince slowly opened his eyes. Startled, the mermaid fled back into the ocean. From that day on, the prince returned to the same beach, searching for the mysterious girl with the heavenly voice. When the mermaid saw how devoted he was, she swam to find the sea sorceress for help. "I want to live among humans," she said. The sea witch replied, "If you give up your voice, I can give you legs." Without hesitation, the mermaid agreed. She drank the magical potion the sorceress gave her, and her tail transformed into legs. But from that moment on, she could no longer speak. Despite her silence, she made her way to the beach and found the prince. He recognized her face but hesitated. "The girl who saved me had a voice like no other. You haven't said a single word." The mermaid's heart ached. Far below the waves, her father, the mighty ocean king, learned of her sacrifice. Using the strength of the seas, he shattered the witch's enchantment. Her voice returned, and with all her heart, she sang the same song that had once reached the prince's ears. His eyes widened. "I know this melody. That was you. You rescued me." And so, the mermaid discovered that true bravery is the strongest magic of all. Her tale became one of hope, proving that with love and courage, no challenge is too great. From then on, she and the prince shared a joyful life together. A sudden gust burst through the open window, snuffing out the warm fire inside the house. The room went dark, and the siblings trembled with fear. The storm grew so wild that Kai, unable to hold on, was swept outside into the snowy night. Hovering in the swirling snow was the Snow Queen herself. Without a word, she reached for Kai's hand, pulled him onto her sleigh led by ghostly white wolves, and they soared into the clouds. Gerda could only watch as her brother vanished into the sky. From that moment, Kai began living in the icy halls of the Queen's frozen palace. At first, his playful nature brought a sense of warmth to the cold-hearted Queen. Yet she didn't see that Kai was slowly growing weaker from the cold and longing deeply for his sister. Eventually, the cold crept into Kai's heart, turning it to solid ice. His joyful spirit faded, and laughter became rare. Back in their village, Gerda had never stopped searching. For months, she wandered through blizzards and across silent forests, determined to find her brother. One day, a white reindeer noticed her courage and persistence. "I'll carry you to the Queen's castle," said the reindeer. Gripping its antlers tightly, Gerda climbed on. With a leap, they soared through the wintry sky. They landed near the glistening ice palace, where Gerda rushed inside and found Kai, frozen and pale. She wrapped him in a warm embrace, holding him close. Her love began to thaw the frost in his heart. Slowly, Kai's color returned. He smiled for the first time in ages. "Thank you, Gerda," he whispered, tears in his eyes. From a distance, the Snow Queen witnessed the scene and felt something stir within her. For the first time, she saw how much pain she had caused. Realizing her mistake, she didn't stop them. Instead, from that day on, she often visited Gerda and Kai's home as a friend. She was no longer alone, for she finally understood that love had the power to melt even the coldest heart. The golden fish answered, "Your wife now rules as an empress." But even with her newfound title, she remained unsatisfied. Looking up at the sky, she declared, "I wish to live above the clouds." Reluctantly, the fisherman returned to the shoreline. As always, he shared his wife's desire. The fish simply replied, "Her wish is granted. She now dwells in the sky." From that day forward, the fisherman could no longer hear her voice or see her face. Eventually, longing filled his heart. He stood before the fish once more and said, "I've passed along every wish she made, but this time, I have a request of my own. Please bring her back." The fish answered gently, "Go home. She's waiting for you." When he arrived, The old cottage stood just as before, and there she was, his wife, standing outside with open arms. She hugged him tightly and whispered, "I finally understand. I took everything for granted. I'm happiest here with you in this cozy little home." She had learned that joy doesn't come from grandeur, but from love, simplicity, and gratitude. Meanwhile, in a distant village, a couple lived happily together. One morning, the wife said longingly, "I'm craving fresh, crunchy lettuce." To please her, the husband picked lettuce from a nearby field, but that land belonged to a wicked, jealous sorceress. She appeared, captured him, and hissed, "If your baby is born with golden hair, she belongs to me." Their daughter was born with long, shimmering locks, just as the witch had said. With heavy hearts, the parents named her Rapunzel and watched as the sorceress took her away. Rapunzel was raised in a tall tower with no stairs or door, only a single window. Whenever the witch wanted to visit, she would call, "Rapunzel, let down your golden hair." Obediently, Rapunzel would release her long braid so the witch could climb up. Years passed in silence and solitude, until one day, a young prince riding nearby heard Rapunzel singing. Enchanted by her voice, he mimicked the witch's call. "Rapunzel, let down your golden hair." When she lowered her braid and saw a stranger instead of the witch, fear filled her eyes. But the prince spoke kindly. "Don't be frightened. I mean no harm." Slowly, trust bloomed, and a friendship began. They made a secret plan. Each time the prince visited, he brought fabric. Rapunzel stitched the pieces together, creating a rope to escape. But one day, the witch discovered the truth. Rapunzel had let slip. "The prince climbs up faster than you." Furious, the witch shrieked, "You allowed a stranger into the tower!" With a flash of rage, she cut Rapunzel's long braid and cast her into the desert. Although free from the tower, Rapunzel found herself utterly alone. Still, she never lost hope. Eventually, the prince, who had searched for her day and night, found her again. He brought her to his kingdom, where Rapunzel was reunited with her true family. She had changed. She was no longer the timid girl locked in a tower. She was bold, wise, and full of heart. Her family embraced her, proud of the strength she had gained. Rapunzel had reclaimed her freedom, and with it, the love of those she once lost. In the deep blue ocean, a group of fierce sharks roamed the waters, constantly hunting for smaller fish. Every creature beneath the waves feared them. One morning, the redfish mother needed to dive far into the sea to search for food. Before leaving, she gathered her 3 children and said firmly, "Stay inside, don't open the door, and never speak to anyone you don't know." The young redfish promised to obey, but their curious minds buzzed with questions. Noticing that the mother was gone, the sharks devised a sneaky trap. The leader of the pack came up with a trick. He would disguise himself as one of the redfish. He swam through a coral garden and rolled in red sand to change his color. Then he covered his sharp fin with long strands of seaweed. To complete the trick, he grabbed a basket of seaweed cookies, the redfish children's favorite treat. He approached the reef where they lived and knocked gently. "Would anyone like some delicious cookies?" he called in a friendly tone. The little redfish were excited, but one of them grew suspicious. "Mom warned us not to speak to anyone we don't know," he said. The other 2, convinced by the visitor's red color, replied, "He looks just like us. He must be safe." They opened the door. The shark lunged inside, revealing his sharp teeth, but just then, a hook from above grazed his back, pulling away the seaweed that covered his fin. The children gasped. "That's no redfish. It's a shark," they cried. The 3 siblings scattered. One darted beneath a rock, another zipped into a coral cave, and the last squeezed under a seashell. But despite their quick thinking, 2 of them were caught and dragged away. The redfish who escaped swam as fast as he could to find his mother. Tears in his eyes, he told her what had happened. Without wasting a second, the mother fish sought help from a giant blue whale named Willie. Willie, strong and wise, took off in pursuit. The sharks, just moments away from eating their tiny captives, were caught in one giant swoop of his mighty mouth. Hovering above them, Willie thundered, "Will you ever bother the little ones again?" The sharks trembled. "No," they said, shaking. "We promise." With that, Willie returned the young redfish to their grateful mother. They swam home together, safe and sound. From then on, the redfish family understood something very important. Facing danger isn't something you do alone. It takes trust, teamwork, and helping one another. Life returned to normal in the coral reef after the sharks were chased away. The redfish family lived peacefully, surrounded by colorful sea plants and friendly neighbors. The mother redfish never left her little ones alone again, and the 3 siblings, now wiser and more careful, always remembered her advice. Whenever someone unfamiliar approached, they would whisper to each other, "Stranger danger," but the story of their bravery spread across the ocean. Other sea creatures began to work together to keep their reef safe. Tiny shrimp guarded the coral paths, jellyfish lit up dark corners, and dolphins patrolled the open waters. As time passed, the sharks never dared to return. They had learned a powerful lesson. Kindness and courage were stronger than fear. And so, from the icy towers of distant queens to sunlit beaches where mermaids sang, from golden-haired girls in hidden towers to tiny redfish in sparkling seas, all the stories whispered the same truth. Love protects, courage heals, and when we stand together, even the smallest voice can echo across the world. And that is how the adventures came to an end, for now. But under the waves, above the clouds, behind every castle wall and cottage door, new stories wait to be told. All it takes is a little imagination and a heart that believes.